Patrick, I'll pass
Bruno,
it to you. And, what can you tell us about 4.3? Why should people go to 4.3? Is it a good idea? What's
I
exciting?
think so. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, actually. So,
I expected you'd say that,
yeah.
So
But hopefully you out there will see why we think it's a good idea and the things that could be cool for you. And then, we'll turn it back to 360 and Keith, and they can talk about the upgrade process and their successes that they found while doing it. And just another quick note. Number one, if I sound a little soft, I apologize. I'm having some throat issues. So if I'm not my usual buoyant self, Bruno, I apologize. But and then Pauline, Bruno, and Keith, please do chime in as I'm presenting some of these what's new capabilities. If it's something that you're especially passionate about, please, feel free to chime in and share with that at that moment. That'd be great. Keep it interactive and, as Bruno said, very exciting instead of just kind of boring, right? Okay, so what's new in 4.3? First, the usual SAP legal disclaimer, and also a little background on me. So I'm Patrick Sims. I'm with our global COE for analytics. I've been with the company 19 years now. Came over via Business Objects, and much like Bruno, I'm an old Webby guy at heart. So I have a lot of love, experience, and loyalty to the BobJ platform. I like what we're doing with it now in the context of the greater SAP Analytics vision, and I think there's some cool stuff here for everybody. But the usual SAP legal disclaimer, I'm not going to be talking about roadmap items per se, but we will talk a little bit about schedules and maintenance and things like that. So, the usual, don't make your decision based on things that haven't happened yet. But, hopefully you'll make your decision based on the cool stuff that is today available. All right, so let's get started with the big three key themes or pillars that we focused on in the development of 4.3. First and foremost, in my mind, is we've updated the user experience. As I noted before, I'm an old Webby guy, right? But as the tableaus and clicks of the world have kind of come into play, and the beauty of that is it's opened up the world of analytics to more population than I think that ever really paid attention to it before. But at the same time, then it provided really simple interfaces. And so while Webby remains the most used BI and analytic platform out there, and certainly is still the most powerful in terms of pure analytic firepower and capability, for that kind of Tableau and click crowd, quite often, the circa 2008 Windows ribbon look and feel of Webby currently could be a bit daunting and complex to some. And so I think that that's been a bit of a hindrance in terms of getting some of these newer users to adopt Webby and BobJ through the years. So we've done a complete overhaul of the user experience. It's modernized. It is more simple without being less capable. There's a lot of good stuff that we've done in terms of Webby, in terms of the Launchpad, in terms of even Crystal. So I think as we dive into that a little bit more, you'll see some cool stuff there. Next up is enterprise readiness. That's always consistently been a pillar of all of our releases since, back in the XIR2 days. Now, quite frankly, I'll fall on my sword and say, we at SAP are not always great at doing this stuff. That's why Bruno and 360 exist, to kind of help us do some of these things better in terms of auditing and workflow and lifecycle management and that kind of thing. But we are always striving to make what's available out of the box better for you, and we've certainly done that with 4.3. And then the third theme or pillar is hybrid. Now, most of you, I believe, know that the big picture strategy for SAP is that we are moving to the cloud from an analytics standpoint. But you can be forgiven to think it's cloud only because of the marketing machine that's kicked in. The reality check is that we know that you out there have a lot of time, investment, and intellectual capital sunk into BobJ, and we want you to be able to reuse that investment. In fact, if anything, I'd say hybrid to the marketing guys is a way for us to try to move you to the cloud. To me, though, it's a way for you to extend your existing business objects content with some of the things that we're innovating in the cloud, adding AI and machine learning to your Webby documents, for instance, or giving you an easier and simpler way to get stories or dashboards out there that you can do on the quick, easier data modeling on the fly, data wrangling, things like that. So I really don't look at it as a, hey, let's try and move you to the cloud as fast as possible. I look at it in the more hybrid sense of what can you do to even improve upon the great stuff you've already done in business objects with SAC, and what can we do from a technology standpoint to enable that and better make it happen. All right. Any thoughts on that, Bruno or Keith or Pauline, on the themes?
Frankly, no, that looks pretty good. I'm just curious to see what you'll be showing in terms of UI and how the new user interface
Sure.
works. And, I think that has been a concern over the community to know how much of a change it is. And that there are a lot of questions on that.
Sure. And that's a great segue to the first of our pillars we'll talk about, which is the user experience. And it really comes down to, I'd say, three key things with a sub bullet. So first is a new Launchpad experience for you. One of the things we always get dinged on is that when people go into the BI Launchpad, it feels old to people. And so, for those who image is a thing, they just sort of feel like, the business objects feels old and tired when they get into it. So we've modernized that. For those of you who are not part of the broader SAP family, Fiori is two things. Number one, it's a design conceit. So it's big tiles, modern fonts, more images, things like that to try and be more compelling in terms of what you're looking at. It's also technology. So that's why we call it Fiori-like, because we're not forcing the technology part on you. We're just using it as a design conceit. And you'll see this across SAP for really not just the ERP, but all of our applications. And then included in that new Launchpad experience is some enhancements to scheduling and publication that we've added. But then to me, the bigger news again is, a brand new and totally rejuvenated Webby 4.3 user experience. But then even Crystal, the longest, oldest tooth in the mouth, even Crystal's getting some love and some updates there. So we'll talk about those briefly as well. All right, so the Fiori Launchpad, this is what it looks like. And so it's a modernized user experience. But I think to something Bruno just said, one thing that's key, all of your existing content, all of your existing authorizations and security, all of that is still here. And we're at full functional parity with the existing Launchpad. We've updated the BI workspaces accordingly. I'm not sure how many of you use workspaces, but I'm a huge fan of that. It's a way for any given user to take pieces of their existing content, Webby and or Crystal, and kind of encapsulate it into, call it a dashboard if you want. But it's a great way for people to start their day in the Launchpad, to have their BI workspace of all the stuff that's very pertinent to them without really having to replicate it into its own dashboard, just taking pieces from that existing content that people put their work into. So workspace has been updated. There is no dependency on third-party software, i.e. Java and things like that, right? It's all HTML5 now. And not only is it functional parity, but we even have, as noted earlier, some enhancements in terms of publication and scheduling. Oh, sorry, little mouse error there. So I just have some little videos here. So this is what it looks like. As you're scrolling through, you hit any of these tiles and you can get to your old foldering mechanism and your content lists. You've got user updates, you've got your BI inbox, all of the good things that you like, but just again, in more of a kind of modern look and feel. And then of course the application tray at the bottom, which shows all of the applications available to you within the BI suite, which also can include, by the way, links to SAP Analytics Cloud. So you can have your users doing their BI Launchpad and getting to both their on-prem and their cloud content if they desire. But then comes Webby, and this is, again, really, I think, my big fave. So we've totally rejuvenated the user experience. Number one, we've gotten rid of all those double ribbons, so it's a lighter menu bar. We've put build panels, so again, no less capable. You've got all the capabilities, but you slide them in from the right-hand side as you see fit when you need it. And so that's to format and build your visuals and have much more granular control over those. And also then the right mouse contextual widget is still there. And in fact, if anything, it's even better because you'll see later on in the enterprise readiness piece that we have ways for you to modify and enhance that right mouse contextual menu for things that are pertinent to you. And then there's a reading mode for Webby as well. So for that primary consumer, not author, it's a much easier way for them to simply view, refresh, export, use input controls and filters and things like that. It's just a much more compelling and easy to use interface. And overall, the blue line at the bottom there, I think is the key. To me, these enhancements truly bring back that ad hoc and self-service flavor of Webby and make it not seem as daunting to that newer lowest common denominator user. I think that's huge. It's also, every client is the same. So whether you're a Webby rich client person or you're using it on the web and ultimately in the mobile as well, it's all the same exact thing. So no little vagaries between them anymore. It's all HTML5, so no more Java reliance or Java issues, more importantly. So I think all overall, it's pretty compelling. All the good stuff we had before, the custom extensions, things like that, all of that is still here. More compelling graphics, I think, a better charting engine than we've seen before. In fact, we even have, we've done webinars with Bruno and 360 where we have people using Webby as a lightweight dashboard authoring mechanism. So I think really it's much more compelling visual and much easier to use now. And we do have, again, a little kind of demo video. So here we are in a Webby document. On the right-hand side, we've got our build panel. And so all of that is very easy for us to rigidly control what we're looking at. You've got a trial and analysis capability where, if you're trying to put charts on, whether you're doing filtering or anything else, you don't have to do the full brunt of all of the data. So it's a faster way to do trial analysis to make sure that the visual looks like what you want it to. There's the right context menu to apply ranks and sorts and things like that. That context menu will only show capabilities pertinent to the particular visual that you're looking at. Drills and linked analysis, of course, are all still there. Drilling out to other Webby documents, to crystal reports, drilling to different pages within your Webby document, all of that capability is there. And I think, is looking at just this example, this does not look like your grandfather's Webby, right? I mean, it's definitely much more compelling from a visual standpoint. You see the geo map in the lower left corner there too. So that gets into those custom expressions, custom visuals that I talked about. So all of that is there now for us to use. And I just think it's a much more compelling interface for you, easier to use, and much more value.
It's a lot cleaner.
Yeah, clean and simple, I think, is probably the best way to think of it.
Definitely, that's the feedback that we've been having. And just before we move on, if the audience wants to share in the chat boxes, we'd be interested to know on which business object version you're on right now. Are you in 3.1, XR2? I hope not.
I think the last time I saw a report, we only had some customers in Japan on R2. So most everyone else, I think.
And on all the BobJ versions, it's funny, they're always kind of a little bit behind. They're always laggers.
Right. Exactly.
That's what we tend to find out. Yep. Fortunately, we don't see many people on 4.0, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Just feel free to share your versions of BobJ. That would be interesting just for us to know.
So it was interesting. Pauline and I were talking yesterday about trying to remember the last time the BI Launchpad got refreshed or had gotten updated, right? And it was really with the release of BusinessObjects 4.0 back in 2011. So it's been almost 10 years we've been using that same kind of interface, right?
Exactly.
There's been tweaks to it along the way, but for the most part, that interface has been around for the last 10 years. So
yeah, that's why actually Patrick, he's got voice problems tonight, as he was happy to present on that today, as he went to do disco last night, and he just
exactly. Don't I wish?
Sorry for the bad joke.
No, that's all good. It's all good. But actually, that's an interesting point too. So for those of you who are on 4.2 from Service Pack 5 on, you may not know this, but you actually have kind of a, let's call it a beta of the new Launchpad that's available to you out of the box without you even knowing it. So look through your help documentation if you're still on 4.2, and you can find it's a different URL to open up BI Launchpad, and it's the Fiori version. And you even get an early example of that reading interactive panel that I talked about to see what your Webby documents look like. So for those of you who haven't moved, it's a nice way for you to see. It's not fully functional with where we are today with 4.3, but it's a nice start for you to sort of see what your users can expect. And we've had people use it as a way to kind of get their users ready for 4.3. Okay, so moving on. Another key thing, which I think is really, really cool. Again, if you want to think about that, lowest common denominator user. So someone who, even the query panel may be a bit daunting for them. We've got this new concept where you can turn existing Webby documents into data models that can be then used as sources for new Webby documents, or in hybrid mode, can be used as a source for SAC stories and dashboards. So I think this is really cool, right? We all know how much intellectual capital goes into any given Webby document. So if Bruno is my, pro expert guy, and I'm someone who, the query panel even kind of freaks me out, I can use one of Bruno's documents, and instead of having to, copy the document, paste it, and then, delete every visual he made because I like my visuals better than his, I can use his document as a data model source for my new Webby document, and then create the visuals and the links and the charts that I want. So I think it's a huge time saver, but it also lets you get into the notion of, let sort of the business analyst expert persona do more for the rest of the user community who may want to do just sort of some little one-off analyses here and there. So I think it's a really huge, cool thing, right? And so again, any objects you've selected, the universes you've used for the query, the dimensions, measures, variables, anything custom you've made is all available as a data source for continuing on that analysis in a different way.
And
so again, the power user concept and the lighter end user. Key thing is too, if I'm the business power user and I update my underlying Webby document, the data model gets updated as well. So everything stays in sync without having to do any further effort on that. So I don't know, Bruno, have you gotten any feedback on the efficacy of this? Because we are seeing that a lot of people, old Webby stalwarts, really like this new capability as they're trying to introduce 4.3 to new users.
that's what I've been hearing. Maybe KJ, Pauline, you might have some other feedback on that. And by the
Yeah, I
way,
haven't heard much. It's definitely a cool feature because like you said, some people have challenges developing Webbies, but I can do the visualizations and know what they want it to look like, and so it's definitely a good way to get that done.
I think it's just, these are, the new features are, it's still sort of on the cutting edge. So, people are kicking the tires on it. But I know for our, people are just getting to move into the 4.3 platform. And this year we're seeing a large uptick in that. So hopefully we'll get to, our customers will start to take advantage of this stuff.
And it seems to be a lot more self-service. That's, what.
Exactly.
And the funny story is, initially when BobJ was founded, actually people tend to forget, but that was actually, the intent was to be very self-service.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I say, it's definitely a return to definitely a return to
information. And on the versions, I was on the question that we had earlier. It's most of the people today are actually in 4.2. I've seen one person on 4.1, but pretty much everyone is in 4.2 and from SP5 and up.
That's great. That's great. So you guys can all go test the Fiori Launchpad if you want to take a look at it. Crystal, so what's new in 4.3 there? So first and foremost, we have a 64-bit version of both the client and server now. In terms of exporting to Excel, we've got page-based exporting that we can do now. We've also got the ability to freeze panels and columns and headers and such in the DHTML viewer that we have natively in the Launchpad for Crystal. And we've got publication and scheduling that have been renewed in the Launchpad as well. So the key thing with publishing and publication and scheduling is that you have a lot more control now. You can use calendars and calendar widgets to control it. You've got much more visibility into all the different jobs that are there. And of course, inputs and all those other good things that we have. Okay, which gets us then to enterprise readiness. So some of the key things here to focus on that I won't have too many screenshots on because I'm trying to limit my time here. But install and deployment, right? Always trying to make sure that when you are upgrading or migrating, that your downtime is minimalized, that it's as easy as possible. We've got security enhancements in terms of more content that we can use from the underlying data source to better enhance the security. We've added Kerberos SSO as well from our own administrator tools, but obviously 360 has a please don't shoot me, anyone from SAP, or dime me out for saying this, but obviously 360's administrator capabilities far surpass what we have out of the box. But we've got some new admin portals and consoles for you to play with out of the box. Improved audit functionalities, once again, not our strong suit, but we do continue to try to enhance more. And then semantic layer enhancements, which I'll go ahead and go into now a little bit. So first and foremost, for the BW crowd out there, we've got support now for info providers. So no BEX queries are necessary anymore. So this is for multidimensional universes, UNXs, but you've got access to InfoCubes, multi-providers, advanced data store objects, all that other good stuff that so many BW stalwarts love and have not always been well served from the BobJ side of life. We've also added for direct HANA access, our HTTP access, which is INA based. The key thing about this is that third-party providers cannot use this connector. And that means that, if you are looking at Tableau or some of those others in parallel to BobJ, they can't get to HANA the way we can. They don't have support for all of the views that we have. They don't have awareness of the context, whether that's hierarchies, whether it's security, whether it's variable or input parameters, all of those good things. So this is a huge thing for BobJ, as well as the rest of our analytics footprint, that we've got this unique in-family, if you will, connector to get to HANA to fully utilize all of what you've done in the HANA database itself versus having to replicate some of that at the BI tool level. So for those of you on HANA, this is a big deal. But we've also got Smart Refresh for those connections. And remember, this is a direct connection, so it's not a universe thing. So it's not a UNX thing. This is a better way for you to refresh those direct live connections. We've got some extensions that we've added to the IDT, including something I already referenced, which is the ability for you to modify the commands that you have surfaced in the context right-click menu that we saw on Webby. We've got a better output console for you too in the IDT. With the IDT, some people might ask the question, do I have to move to UNX for 4.3? And the answer is no, but I'll talk about that just a little bit more at the end of the slides. New data sources, of course, always there. So big data is obviously something we're looking at. So Snowflake, Cloudera, Hortonworks, Java Bean driver supports as well for UNX universes. So, again, some might think, wow, with 4.2 Service Pack 8, especially, we had gotten to well over 300 different data sources. And were we kind of drying out on that? And you see here, the answer is no. We're still looking for new data sources to natively support with the universes. I think that's a big thing for a lot of you. And then finally, we have the ability to use multiple secondary credentials when you're doing authentication. This actually lets you map your users and credentials in much more granular ways than just the way we have it right now with users and teams. You can do a lot more with your mapping of those credentials.
Patrick,
go ahead, Bruno. Yeah.
One comment as well, as I saw recently the analytics statement of direction, and I believe I think it's from 4.3, perhaps SP8, but anyway, one of the SPs, deployments will be forced to go over to UNX.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that on the calendar slide. But yeah, you're right. Yep. Okay. So then let's talk hybrid. And again, I know a lot of you don't want to hear the words SAP Analytics Cloud, just like you didn't want to hear HANA. But it is part of our strategy, so we do have to talk about it. But again, I look at this for the stalwart BobJ crowd. I see our hybrid capabilities that we're enabling as ways for you to extend your Webby docs, extend your Crystal reports, and do things with them that you can't do right now in BobJ, or that you have to try and code, for instance. And so, first and foremost, we have live connectivity to BI universe data. What's big about that? Well, in the cloud world, a lot of you don't want to go to cloud because you don't want to bring your data into the cloud. And so we can use the universe as a true metadata layer to get to data that's on premise, but that stays on premise under your span of control, under your security, in your, under everything that you want to do in terms of tending and maintaining that data, so that the data only meets the metadata from any given SEC object at the browser level. So it's all behind your firewall and all under your control. And the same is now true of Webby data models. So we talked about when we introduced this, how you can use the Webby data model to create new Webby documents, but you can also use it to generate new SAC stories, and then use that to take advantage of, Bruno's great Webby document does as much as it can, but I want to add some predictive and some machine learning capabilities into that. I want to do some additional, perhaps what if or planning capabilities on that. And so I can do that with SAC natively. We've also then got Crystal reports calculations that, similar to the Webby data model, can be used as a starting point for SAC stories. We've also got hybrid user management, so that all of that work that you've put into managing and securing your BobJ platform can be pushed up into the cloud, so that Bruno doesn't lose his capabilities when he moves to the cloud. He's got all of that, and you don't have to replicate his teams and groups and all that good stuff. And then finally, a third piece of our hybrid strategy is something called Analytics Hub. Hub is a way for us to, I'd say it could replace Launchpad for the lightweight users as a means to surface cloud content and on-prem content all in a single Fiori-like tile. And that's not just for the BobJ side of life, but you can even let third-party links be accessed to that too. So as a way to tame the zoo of your multiple tools, because we know most of you don't have just BobJ, but a way for you to have kind of a single one-stop shop for analytics. Hub is a great way to do that. But we have ways for us to automatically push from the BobJ platform up into Hub, so that it's easier for you to manage. And so those are the key things, I think, from a hybrid standpoint. And with that, we get into the calendar. So hopefully you've seen some cool things in 4.3 that make you want to move off of 4.2. But just to put the actual timeline on it, you've got a 2-year runway now for 4.2. Service Pack 9 will be the final support package, and after that it will be just patches that we release until Priority 1 support begins at the end of 2022. And then 4.3, of course, will stay in true to SAP's 7-year window, will stay in maintenance until at least 2027. But we say at least because if we do major releases even within the 4.3 umbrella, then that could extend, and it's likely it will. So to the point of UNV and UNX, so UNVs will live on for the lifetime of 4.3. So where we go after that, whether it's 4.4 or whether it's 5.0, that point you will need to move to UNXs. So I look at this as, a lot, especially in the federal area, they're always asking, when do we need to do this? And for at least 2 years now, we've been saying, you don't have to, but you should start planning. Well, now you've got a nice 7-year runway to know that you should work in a conversion to UNXs in that 7-year time frame as you're moving down the path with 4.3. So that's the big picture. That's really all I had, Bruno. So thank everybody. And I'll check out the Q&A and see if there are any questions that Bruno can't handle or that he wants to stump me with, and turn it over to Pauline. So we stop sharing.
Probably let's just take a few questions, Patrick, just before we pass it over to Pauline. And in terms of UNX, we've been talking for years and years, going from UNV to UNX, and you would think that most people did do that work, but actually it's not the case today. And probably a good thing I would say is, in your process when you move to 4.3, frankly, just do the damn conversion. Okay.
Amen, brother.
Do the
Amen.
Just do it.
Yep. Bite the
And
bullet
don't
and do
wait.
it.
It's fairly straight to do it. Just do it. Don't wait, because each time it just creates more and more problems, and it's not a good practice just to to keep holding on it. So.
Yep. And to me, the biggest thing about the UNX is a lot of you probably are doing multiple data providers from multiple universes at the same report. And then you have to go through all of that pain and frankly, not as much capability of combining those results at the report level. To me, the fact that a UNX can be multi-source, that alone should have made most of you want to switch in the beginning, I think. I don't know, that's my thought, Bruno. What do you think?
Yes, sometimes I would say it's more a matter of resource. People are not
Fair
planning
enough. Fair enough.
in their upgrade, and people are saying, well, I'll just do it next time. I'll do it next time. But the thing
Yeah,
is,
true enough.
it's like a burger at the end. It's, you've got layers of next time each time, and it's a big one. And at the end is, you've got to take it because it's getting so big that at the end, you can't eat it. So
Yep. Amen. Yep.
Just do it. And just a few questions as we go through and before passing it over to
Sure.
Pauline is, okay, we've got a question. Wouldn't Webby as a data source be a bit of a security risk also, if objects can be controlled through BW authorization and instead made available from a Webby source? That's a long question.
So when you're building something off of that Webby data model, all of the underlying security that went into building that initial starting Webby model is all enforced. So, it's not a workaround for, like, if Bruno's just North America and I've got a global view, Bruno opens my Webby doc and then can only see North America. It's not a way for him to try and do an end run around that and not have his security invoked when he uses my data model for his new document. So all of that security is still enhanced, or not enhanced, I'm sorry, it's invoked when you're using a Webby data model. And that's true of the cloud as well.
And the question as well is, from which version of 4.2 is Fiori Look available?
I believe we started it with Service Pack 5.
Yeah,
But again, it's really, again, think of it as an intro to what this thing could look like, because we've done a lot more with it. Certainly, from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, we've improved even that little beta of Fiori Launchpad, if you will. But even the Service Pack 8 version is not nearly as capable as the Service Pack 9 version or the 4.3 version.
Okay. Well, let's pass it over to Pauline.
Great, thanks.
And we'll take other questions, after that as well. So feel free just to ask all your questions.
Okay, great. Hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Thanks, Patrick. That was great. So we're going to talk about, now that you've seen what 4.3 can offer, we're going to talk about how best to get there. We've been around, 360 Suite's been around for 14, 15 years now. And we do have a process. We've had a lot of experience with upgrades in business objects, and there are about 10 steps. There are 10 steps here that we recommend. They may not all apply to you, but these are best practices and just approaches that we have found make your upgrade successful.
Okay, so that's the first poll that we have is, we're interested to know basically what is the most challenging upgrade issue that you've experienced in Business Objects. Is this related to a planning assessment? That's a common one, or is it due to a cleanup? Because all these environments tend to be, been on for a long, long time. And as it goes, you've got a lot of content that you got to clean up or archive. Is it related to regression performance testing, all of the above, or none of the above? So I'll just take a couple more seconds to answer, and then we'll be sharing right away the results. And then as we're waiting for the results, also one thing is I'd be interested to know who's on UNV and who's on UNX. So feel free to put that in the chat box. Do we have the results of the polls? Okay. Yeah, so not too surprised on that. So regression is always a big issue, as well as performance testing. So that's a common one. Do you guys have got any comments on that, Patrick or KJ?
Nope. I mean, that stuff, I mean, that's, I would say I would say in our experience, that's a common, regression testing and performance testing always, always sort of takes the cake. There's always some cleanup, planning assessment. That's, other than understanding what your, the new features, functionality in the new platform, that's usually fairly straightforward.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first step that we typically recommend is the prepare step, and Keith has a lot of experience here, so we'll let him speak to these some of the things that he recommends.
Yeah, so anytime you get into into an upgrade, and especially 4.3, here's a couple of and we've got a couple of URL links throughout the presentation, but here are the sort of top 3 things going into 4.3 that I really keep on top of. One is the PAM, right? So what versions are supported for browsers? What versions are supported for databases? Are there, operating system support? Just understanding what's supported, what's not supported, right? So as you go back and look at your current environment, or is what of all your data sources, are there going to be any compatibility issues? Just understanding that sort of matrix going into your upgrade. Also understanding the schedule for the maintenance deliveries, right? So understanding when the service packs are dropping. There's a pretty, we just had Service Pack 1 drop back in December, and Service Pack 2 isn't slated until the end of the year. But there's a number of interim patches that are dropping for 4.3. So just understanding the timing on that stuff. If you run across issues, just understanding when are those upcoming patches coming, and then keep, monitor those in case they affect or fix some of the issues that you've seen. And then lastly, Patrick, we've sort of touched on this a number of times, but obviously the Fiori client is, sort of the big star in the upgrade. And this is, trying to understand the new interface, how it works, the feature functionality, especially the Webby interface has changed. So anything to get more familiar with that interface, as well as you've got a lot of end users that are going to be in the same boat. So how do you address training and getting them comfortable with that new interface?
Yep, definitely. And continue with prepare, we often use 360 Eyes for the assessment prior to doing the upgrade. With 360 Eyes, you can extract all of your metadata from auditor, CMS, and file store all into one database, and that gives you a full picture of who's using what hasn't been used in a certain amount of time. What do we actually have? Do we have Webby? Do we have crystals? What content is not being used? Are there duplicate reports? There are duplicated users copy reports from public folders to user folders, and then you've got 10 copies of every report. And that kind of information, it's good to do that assessment. Okay, and this is just an example from 360 Eyes, just an overview. It'll give you information about your environment. We often do this. We start off with customers that are about to do an upgrade. They often start with 360 Eyes and they tell me, oh, we don't use inboxes. No, we don't use that. We run this report and we see, oh, you have 30,000 inbox documents. So somebody's using inbox documents. And it could be that, they're sitting around, you just keep migrating the content. And so this will give you, you get an overview, especially if you're new to an environment. This lets you see, where I have a lot of user folders, public folders, inboxes. Do I have a lot of instances? What are the size? What's that? Why is that FRS so large? Is it because of all the instances? So that helps you to kind of get an overview of what you have. Okay, and then the next step is evaluate. And this is, taking a look at where are, it's a good time with upgrades to say, okay, where are we? Is usage increasing? Is it decreasing? Kind of predict the future so that when typically, hopefully you're going to 4.3, you're probably standing up new servers. A lot of customers talk to us that moving to the cloud. So it's a good kind of time to see what do we need to, capacity planning, what do we need to plan for if things are increasing. And these reports from 360 Eyes will give you that information. Keith, I don't know if you have anything with certain customers that you've.
Yeah, sure. So, we find 360 Eyes is key for any upgrade. It's, you guys have always referred to it as BI on BI, right? And it allows, we do a lot with the canned reports as well as tweak those to really get a handle on, the content that's in, a customer's business object system. How is it being used, right? As you already showed a couple of the reports there. User sessions for a licensing perspective, the content and the instances, just to understand how many documents are coming over, how many are unique. But it's not limited to just that. I mean, we look at, how are people scheduling documents? Are they going out to emails? Are they going out to a network location? So really getting using 360 Eyes to allow us to do ad hoc on all of that metadata that's contained in the CMS is awesome when it comes to upgrades.
Definitely, that's key. Okay, so the next step 3 is the backup and cleanup. And we always recommend a backup. With 360 Plus, you can do a full backup. It creates a backup of every object, gets its own buyer file. It's incremental, so you can continuously run your backup and only create backup files of anything that's new or been modified. And what it allows you to do is you can restore the whole environment to another CMS. There's no ties to the source CMS, but you can also restore something that an individual object. Maybe you need to roll back to another document, another version, or you need to know what happened. And I'll show real quick. I was just going to show kind of what the backup will and the restore capability. So if when you're, our CMS is so long, I can't type on. So this is 360 Suite where your backups are running. If I go into my public folders, take a look at one of my documents here. Okay, so I have a couple documents here, some Webby documents. So maybe you're having issue with a particular document, you moved it 4.3, you're having issues, and the developers say, oh, I didn't make any changes. You can actually go to your backups, and you can see that every time a change is made, a backup gets created. But you actually have the ability to compare. So I can compare the current version with the version of the Webby document from January, and I can see if maybe something has changed. So here I can compare data providers, variables, the reports. These different colors indicate there's something different. So that green means the city object, the year object was added. This is my current object. This is my backup. So those objects were added. So something changed in the query. This object was removed. So it shows, this particular object was removed. Going over variables, I can see a new variable was added. So here's the variable. It even gives me the formula there, so I can see what that's doing. And then at the report level, you can also get information about what's there. So this is looking at what's been added, something added to the page header or a block in the report. So these two have been added. So just to give you an overview of something, you moved to 4.3. It's not 4.3 that did it. Something something changed with the document. So that's important.
You get the one, the one change out there that, sort of ripples through, and then you find out 3 or 4 weeks down the road said, hey, that formula is no longer working, or that report is no longer calculating the way we expected it to. Nothing, and I get the feedback of, hey, nothing's changed. Are you sure nothing has changed?
Yeah, nobody wants to admit they changed it.
By the way, just put a comment is next week, and I'll put a link after that. But we've got like a digital summit on 4.3, and we'll be doing a live upgrade going to 4.3. So I'll put a link. Just feel free to register, but you'll see, how to go from 4.2 to 4.3 live. So it'll be quite interesting.
Yeah. And part of step 3 is also you clean up. There's some people choose to do the cleanup in their, so if you're going from 4.2 to 4.3, they choose to do the cleanup in 4.2 prior to going 4.3. I like to delete things, so that would be my approach. But some people want to do it after they've moved to 4.3, then they can do the assessment and the cleanup. So, but as long as you have a backup, you can always restore, depending on, it doesn't matter which phase, which point of the process you decide to do the cleanup. But it's definitely a good time to do it. Finding users that have never connected, they're probably storing, documents, cleaning inboxes, deleting unused documents. So with 360 eyes, you can actually identify, with auditing, you're going to, what's being used, but if a report hasn't been run since auditing was turned on, it's never going to show up in an auditing report. So with 360 eyes, you get that full picture, the list of documents that are used and not used. You can even archive instances if you want to move them out of the platform, if you have a requirement to keep them, but want to get them out of business objects, you can actually archive those with 360 Suite as well. And then here's just an example of a customer that I worked with that they set up criteria for inboxes, for instances, for user folders and public folders based on usage, and then you purged, automated that purge with 360 Suite so that they could reduce the size, and they significantly reduced the size. They were moving to the cloud, and it was important to have a smaller footprint. So that was definitely helpful. Okay, so now we're done with all. Yeah, so now we're ready to do you've done all the assessment, the planning for the upgrade, and now get ready to do the 4.3 install.
So a couple of things I like to include or be aware of when you're migrating to 4.3 is, if you don't install it, at least download it, have a copy available. But the SAP support tool for business objects, there's a lot of great reports within that. And plus, if you do run into an issue, support comes back and requests it. At least you got the software available, or at least you've got it available on the system to leverage. So definitely a worthwhile taking a look at that. Another thing, sometimes trying to keep up with all the updates across service packs, something always tends to drop through the pieces. But so Theme Designer came out in Service Pack 6. I had to go back and sort of see when it came out. But we've started to leverage that as just part of our 4.3 upgrades. It allows us to do, or allows you to do, sort of rebranding, change color, add logos to the BI Launchpad in a much simpler kind of process. So something that's sort of overlooked. Also, and I was going to ask Patrick about this, but we've noticed that the install and update files within 4.3 are the same version now, or the same download files. So back in under 4.2, you had installation files and then you had update files, and they were not the same. So I was going to ask Patrick about if he had noticed that as well. And then last but not least, with the upgrades, with any major installations, leverage the silent installation scripts. This is a great way to ensure consistency across your environments and provide that file into your source control tool. So there's a whole area on silent installations, been around for a while. It's much easier than pointing and going all the way through the installation. You need to go through it once to generate the silent installation, but after that, you can update the passwords or the server names directly in that file. It just makes things a lot simpler and keeps things more consistent across environments. All right.
So Keith, to your question, I myself have not done the plumbing, but I have heard that yes, what you have noticed is true. There is no difference between the install and update files yet.
Okay. All right. I thought
think
it was
that is
me
by
and
design.
okay, because I had to go back and double check a couple of times because I was like, you know, so you're so used to it, and I went back and re-downloaded stuff, and I went, oh, okay, no, I guess they are the same. All right.
Yep. That's what I've heard that report. People confused as well. So you're not alone, my friend.
Good to know. Less to download.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Trying to keep it simple, but you know, who knows?
Exactly. That's good. Okay, so step 4 is moving all that content. So once you're ready to, you've done your install of 4.3, now you want to move your content from, you know, maybe it's 4.2 to 4.3. You want to get all of your users, your access levels, your groups, and all your reports and universes. So with 360, you can do that, migrate all the content. If you do use, you can also use the promotion management in the CMC. You just have to make sure that you do it in the correct order. So you got to get your access levels over there first, and then you can do your user groups, and then you can move all the other content. So if you do it in a different order, you're gonna, you know, if you move your folders over first and then the access levels, you're gonna have the right security applied. So just make sure you do that in the correct order, and 360 Plus will do it in the correct order for you. Okay, and this is just showing, so now that you've moved all your content, you know, if you're gonna do your cleanup, you could do it in 4.3 as opposed to doing it in 4.2. And there's a 360 Eyes report that will give you that information. And I had mentioned before, you know, so we do combine, Eyes combines the audit, the CMS, and the file stored data. So you get these reports, these first 2 reports haven't been run, and so they show no action. So a lot of our customers will use this. They'll filter it based on, you know, whatever criteria they have. Maybe anything that hasn't been run in 24 months, 13 months, whatever your criteria is, we're gonna delete. So you can do the bulk deletes with 360 Suite. You do have your backup, so if you need to ever restore, you could always do that as well. Okay, and now moving on to step 6, optimize. I'll let Keith talk to this step here.
Yep. So within the 360 Eyes reports, this is an example of, you know, going back out and really getting a better handle on what objects within the business object system are really being utilized and leveraged. For example, this is, you know, the universe usage. So out of all your content, are there any universes that are no longer being utilized? And then there's even further reports for drilling down into, you know, within the universe. So maybe the universe is still being leveraged, but what are the, you know, especially if universes have been around for a while, they tend to accumulate extra stuff. So out of that are all the, you know, columns or formulas still being leveraged for reports, or are they, you know, they legacy? Can some of that stuff get pruned out? So that's super helpful in terms of just basic housekeeping of your BI system.
Yep. Which is, yeah, upgrade's the perfect time to do that housekeeping.
Little spring cleaning, right?
Yes. Yep. So next up, step 7 is assure quality. So this is one of the steps that, or one of the phases that everybody had kind of responded to that poll that they have the most challenges with. So being able to validate that you are getting the same results. So imagine, so the report, say on the left is the 4.2 version, on the right's the 4.3. It'll highlight any differences. That orange color is showing where those differences are, and then the red on the graph is showing where they are and the differences in the graph. It'll also compare performance, and that's pretty critical to ensure that you've set up your 4.3 environment properly. Maybe you didn't allocate the right resources, so that'll let you do those comparisons. So I'll just show you what 360 bind looks like, giving you that comparison. It allows you to automate your regression testing so that you can ensure that that you're getting the same results. So I'll just open a comparison that I've done. So here's a comparison of just 3 Webbies from 4.2 to 4.3. Obviously, you probably do a lot more, but this will give you that confidence that you aren't seeing any difference, or alert you to where there are possibly some differences. So here's just an example, highlights any differences. I can choose what I want to see. So we compared data, structure, style. And right now I haven't heard any issues with maybe things changing, but if if it's critical that certain fonts are displayed the same way, you can highlight that, or maybe it's just the data. You only care about the data. It'll highlight those differences as well. And I'll just go to, that just gives you a way to automate those things. And here's again, it's highlighting exactly where the differences are. I can go page by page. Anywhere there orange indicates where those differences are. And once you've had this set up, you can automate it. Repeat the process so that you're ensuring that you're getting the accurate results.
Definitely key for going cross versions, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, step 8 kind of ties in with step 7. So with 360 eyes, you can actually identify what you want to compare. So if you have thousands of documents in your environment, you're probably not going to want to test all 10,000 or all 20,000. You're going to define which ones are most often used, which one are get a representative sample of those documents. With eyes, you can get that information, and then you can do impact analysis. So being able to say, okay, I found an issue with this particular variable. Maybe it's the syntax needs to be changed. With 360 eyes, you have all that metadata. You can search through your Webby documents and find which other documents might have that same issue. You can look at SQL variables, where objects are used. So you get that full impact analysis, and then you can make sure that you update the documents that need to be updated. And then step 9, go live. So you've moved all your content, now you're ready to go live. This step, there's some reports in 360 eyes that'll let you do a compare between the 4.2 and 4.3 environments. So maybe after you've gone, you've upgraded, you're testing in 4.3, users are still creating reports in 4.2. Typically you don't freeze the environment. So this would allow you to identify what's been added, and you can get that content moved over. I don't know if Keith, you have a different or another process that you might use for this step.
No, this is sort of perfect, right? You need to figure out, after you've migrated the content, tested it, if you made any kind of tweaks under 4.3, then that you do, you got to sort of go back in, and before your cutover, understand where that delta is, right? Life still continues on the legacy system. What has it really changed? Is it just adding instances? Did someone make a change to one of the reports? But yeah, this is really helpful when it comes to understanding what that delta is prior to cutover.
Right. And then here we are on the last step. So step 10, comply. Now that you've cleaned up your environment, your in 4.3 users are happy. Are you going to let it get out of control again? And yeah, can you speak to this?
Yeah. So now you're on a brand new platform, right? You try to put some of those rules back in place, right? And ensure you follow that disaster recovery, perform the regression testing as you make changes. Understand new documents that are created, new users are added to the system, you know. Try to get back on the, you know, on the solid course of monitoring that BI system as you move forward again. So all important compliance issues.
Especially in the federal. So yeah. Now, how could we help? So we'll go through the Q&A, you know, right after that. So, you know, the last poll is, we'd like to know, can we help you guys out? Do you guys want to get an ebook around the 10 steps on how to upgrade to 4.3? And you're interested to schedule a demo because you've got a project that you're planning right now, or you would like simply to get a trial of 360 for your project. So just let us know, and then we'll be more than happy to get back to you in that regards. And by the way, I saw that Patrick, actually, since he turned his camera off, and I probably know now why he doesn't have any voice, because he's uses a screen from Munch, basically, the background image. So maybe it was not the disco one. It's probably related to that. So
Exactly. I just want to scream. Who knows?
So in terms of questions that we have from the audience, so let's take a couple. We've got a few questions. I don't know if we can cover all, but let's go through them. So the first question, oh, by the way, here, these are actually the 10 steps that we put together for this presentation that you will have in the ebook. So in terms of questions, we are on 4.3. We are on Business Objects 4.3, Pack 1, Patch 2. We noticed that calendar and date prompts are not showing the update month/year page when we click on forward or backward arrow to navigate to different month or year. Are you guys aware of anything on that?
I haven't seen anything on that one.
Nope. I know that patch 200, we just deployed that internally 2 weeks ago. So I was actually gonna take that and kick the tires on that later this afternoon because I hadn't run across that yet either.
Probably
To that point, though, I have heard good things about patch 200.
I would agree. It's a lot more stable.
Yep.
We all agree. I'll probably, on that question, I'll probably take it afterwards and see if I can get an answer. But I'll need to have, or you'll need to share your name into it, because it just says anonymous attendee. So, okay, so that was the first question. The second one could be from the same person. We are on SAP Business Objects 4.3, okay, Pack 1, Patch 2. Notice that we cannot use @prompt operator in a report query that uses custom SQL. We have many reports that uses custom SQL. Blank prompt screen appears while refreshing the report and cannot refresh the report.
And once again, I've not seen anything raised that is like a consistent issue. So I can't see anything from the corporate side of life.
Okay. Is there an update to REST API, particularly the JSON output format version?
I don't believe that we had to do anything with that yet, but we're looking at how to update those in future service packs.
Okay. Another question, in the Webby data model, when the source document is querying from a BEX query or HANA view, the user's BW security roles and objects authorization automatically kick in. But when this data is now loaded into the Webby microcube and then exposed to a consumer Webby document, exactly how will the security be invoked? What setting and configurations are available on the consuming document to prevent users from viewing data that they're not authorized to view?
So I haven't done it myself, but again, from what I've seen from product development, the security of the underlying source Webby document is invoked whenever you try to access it, whether as a Webby data model or, just to view it. So I don't believe we have a problem. I think And to turn something into a Webby data model, by the way, is a simple matter of checking a box on its parameters so that it's then enabled for things to be seen. But yeah, my understanding from the demonstrations that I've seen is that all of the underlying security is invoked.
Okay. And then somebody's asking, will there be a presentation that will be sent? Yes, Carahsoft will actually be doing the follow-up to this webinar, and the recording and the presentations will be shared. And then you'll also be able to see these this event on 360 Suites YouTube channel. I think we've got a couple more questions, but I think we've covered pretty much. Is there anything you guys want to show?
Yeah, I just saw a question about the Fiori Launchpad. So I'm in, this is 4.2 SP8, and somebody asked, how do I get to that? So it's actually, so this is my URL is BOE.BI for the regular interface, but you first enable it right in the CMC, enable Fiori, and then this is the URL. So you can use both. So I can use the Launchpad or the regular. This would, let your users start to get familiar with the Fiori kind of look and feel before you go to 4.3, because nobody likes change, but it's usually good. But it's a good way to get them used to it.
Okay, let's take a last question. I see a last one, and then we'll end after that. But will Query as a Web Services currently set up in our 4.2 production setup stop working when we upgrade to 4.3?
That I'm not sure of, but I know that we're changing the Query as a Web Service so that it uses that Webby data model piece. So I'm not sure how existing ones will, I don't think existing ones will be affected, but how you do it in the future will probably be different in 4.3.
And Punita, I'm assuming that's also your question. So I'll be taking these questions and then with an SAP, and I'll do my best to provide you a quick answer on these. So I know Carahsoft will be sharing these questions to us, so I'll do my best. So anyway, guys, it was really great to have all of you. So folks, that's all for today.